Buckle up for what will be an impactful episode today. You are in for a treat. Matter of fact, I have two guests in studio today. I have a co-host today, the one and only Mrs. Durkin's in the house. Melanie is in the house. What is up, Melanie?
Got a promotion.
Promotion.
Quickly moving on up.
She's moving on up to the east side. Yes, Melanie is here in studio, and I love having her here. She has not been in the co-host position because I actually interviewed her back in the beginning of the episodes. You have to look back at the early episodes of the Impact Podcast, because today we have a very special guest, and she's a friend of ours, has been a friend of ours for many, many years. Sandra Dougherty is in the house. Sandra, welcome.
Thank you.
Are you fired up?
Yeah.
Are you nervous?
A little bit nervous, mostly just excited.
Excited.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
happy to have
this
you
is going to
here.
be a special one because we talk about live a life or telling a story about what is your story. Folks, this is going to be special. And I don't know right now if you're walking, you're jogging, you're running, you're in a plane, you're on a train. But hey, I want to open up today with just a quick prayer that wherever you are, whatever's going on in your life, that you can slow down right now just to listen in. Slow down and breathe. And if you can just, don't close your eyes if you're driving. Okay, I don't want you closing your eyes. But Father, just thank you for this time with Sandra and Melanie right now, as we talk about life and we talk about adversity and challenges and gifts and love and family. That you can take our time in this interview and you can anoint someone who needs to hear some light today. And I'm not sure who that's going to be anywhere around the globe, but that you can just speak through us and work through us so that someone could have just an anointing today of getting their body, mind, or soul right. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Sandra, what is going on? Man, it's great to have you here.
Yeah.
I have known Sandra since, was it 2003?
Somewhere in there.
In that range.
Yeah.
So check this out. Sandra has a acupuncturist background, and she becomes the team acupuncturist for Team Fitness Quest 10. And
Yeah.
did that
Upstairs in the roots.
Upstairs in the roots. It's the only thing we had. We only had the roots. We didn't have downstairs. And how did you get into acupuncture anyway?
Actually, my health.
Your health.
Yeah, I used to have a lot of really terrible allergies and asthma, and kind of went through a lot of the medical route, and it didn't work for me. It was not working for me for several reasons, and I had known a chiropractor who had helped me in the past with some natural medicine, and thought, I'm going to try something new, and I did through a friend who suggested acupuncture, and I never looked back.
Wow. How long did you practice acupuncture for?
I've had my license for somewhere in the range of 20 years. So
Okay.
I came here not too long after that. It maybe was 2 years after I got licensed.
Yep.
I was new.
So tell me about the path from 2003 acupuncturist and then kind of the journey up until the last few years.
Okay. Well, I had just gotten married
Yep.
to the love of my life.
How'd you guys meet?
I'll start crying early on.
Get out your Kleenex,
Yeah.
baby. This is gonna be awesome. How'd you guys meet?
We met playing volleyball, beach volleyball.
Okay.
We had some mutual friends, and every Friday for several years, we'd go out there about 4 or 5 months out of the year. And every Friday night, we'd play beach volleyball. And so we'd known each other for a while, and word got around that he had a crush on me. And I had always thought he was cute, but I had been dating someone else. And then when I wasn't, he asked me out. And 4.5 years later, we married.
Okay.
What
01.
year? 01. Okay.
Yeah.
01. So you were dating someone else.
That was
Yeah.
kind of like us. a little
Interesting,
bit.
Melanie.
Yeah, we
You
got
guys-
married in 01, and I was dating somebody else.
And I stole you right away.
Yeah. That's
Oh.
funny.
Okay, so you're playing beach volleyball. You fall in love with
Yeah.
Bob. You get married. What year was that?
Yeah. 01.
01.
Yeah. May of 01.
Okay.
And right here in San Diego.
Yep.
And he was new to San Diego. He had been from up in the Bay Area
Okay.
in Sacramento. He was a bridge designer for Sacramento Caltrans up there.
A bridge designer.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. He's one of a very small group of elite engineers.
Okay.
And worked for Caltrans, and he got a little taste down here right before I met him. Was on a temporary job that turned into a permanent. He said, I'm not going back.
Right.
I don't care what you have to do to change this job. I'm not going back. And they made a job for him and started up design work down here. So a bridge department down here. Before that, it was all done up in Sacramento.
And then your life
Or Sacramento.
And then your life changed. You had kids.
We had kids. Yeah,
changes everything.
Ooh, yeah, we were married. I don't know, 2014. So 3.5 years, something like that, when we had Tyson.
2004.
I'm sorry, 2004.
Yep,
Because he's 14 now.
Yep. Yeah, Tyson's 14.
So,
what, Grant's 11?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Our kids, by the way, it's easy to remember because Brady, our middle child, is 14, and McKenna, our youngest, is 11.
Yep.
So it's easy to remember they're in the same grades and everything.
Yeah, go to same schools.
Go to same schools, and always have seen you around. And Melanie and Sandra have gotten to know each other very, very well over the time with all the PTA meetings and different organizational things going on around town. So take me to it's 2000. You have the kids and you're going through school. What's next?
So, I was working as an acupuncturist. We had what seemed like the perfect life. I mean, at least from what I wanted. Had 2 healthy kids, super healthy, wonderful husband, and I was going along in life, building my career. And 2014, June of 2014, I had found a lump a few months prior to June, and in the past, I had dealt with a cyst there that I thought, oh, it's probably that. I'm going to ignore it, and it'll go away like it always does. And it didn't. And I went in at the prompting because I also had concurrently injured my shoulder. And that was kind of limping along. And that wasn't getting better with acupuncture and chiropractic either. So I said, I got these 2 things. I like to pile up my medical stuff before I go into the doctor. I'm nothing against doctors. I'm just not my usual first go-to. And so I finally thought I had a friend who was a surgeon, an orthopedic surgeon. And he kind of said, why don't you go in and at least ask for some physical therapy? And I thought, well, while I'm here, I'll talk about this lump. I did. And I came out a couple days later with a diagnosis. They thought it was stage 1 breast cancer. And took about 2.5 to 3 months before they did the biopsy, determined it. By June, it was 2 weeks before school was supposed to start that year. I finally had a surgery, and it was a full mastectomy. And then it was a major surgery. They had to do a lot. I chose to do the reconstruction all at the same time. So it was a 10 or 11 hour surgery. It was a major.
So it was June 2014. You get diagnosed with breast cancer. What month was the surgery?
In August.
August of
so
2014.
It was coming up on 3 months, and it was scary,
Take me back to that time. What was going through your head?
I guess I couldn't believe it. I felt like I was doing everything right. I was fairly, I had always kept control of my weight. I had always been an athlete. I considered myself an athlete for life. I love a lot of sports. I felt like I ate well. I've had a pretty low stress life. I felt, hey, I really go out of my way to take care of myself. I see your chiropractor 1 or 2 times a week because I feel good. I get acupuncture regularly. I'm eating right. I'm exercising. Like, how is this happening? It's what it felt like. Why not just why me, but why me with all this effort?
Right.
I'm not somebody who usually thinks like that I'm excluded, for some reason from bad things happening. It was more when you're going to this length to make sure that your health is in order. It just rocked my world to the point where I questioned whether I should be in practice. Like, it was a real
What was
carpet swiping,
What was
from
one
under
of
me.
like 1 or 2 of the deepest questions you asked yourself on a daily basis? Was it like, when I try to put myself in that situation, is it like, why is this happening to me? Or, hey, God, why would you do this to me? Or, hey, how did I get this? What were like
I would say my belief in God is that you're going to be challenged. And so it wasn't that. It was never that. It was more why, how. How? I don't just believe things spontaneously happen. I know a lot of people believe that about cancer. I do not.
Right.
I believe there's a why and a how.
Mm-hmm.
And my answers to that, if I have gained any answers to that, here 5.5 years later, have changed from what I thought they were, to some degree. I still will never have an answer, but that my question was, it was not just why and how, but how, after all that I've done to stay as healthy as possible in so many areas, how could this be?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a betrayal, kind of your,
It felt,
your,
it felt. That's a very good word, and I have used that word in the past. It very much felt like a betrayal. And I wouldn't say from God. It was, I don't know, from my own body, or from all the things we think we're being told. It felt like a betrayal of that information. I'm doing all of that, and here I am.
Yeah.
So how long would you say that entire battle with cancer took until it went into remission?
It was close to 2 years.
2 years.
Somewhere between probably 18 months, somewhere in there. 18 months to 2 years.
Some good days, probably a lot of bad days.
Oh, a whole lot of bad days.
Because you were going through chemo as well.
Well,
after the
yeah,
surgery,
things happened real fast. It was like the super slow lead up to the pretty significant surgery. I had never even had any kind of surgery or anything. I stayed away from.
mastectomy?
No, it was a single, but
okay.
I was well endowed. And they said, we cannot match that. You need to have a reduction on the other side.
Okay.
So I opted everything all at once. And so once that surgery happened, 7 days later, all of a sudden pathology comes back, and it's a whole different ballgame. Because they pull things out, and then they examine all the tissue they've pulled out, and they're saying now, this is a stage 2, which in this type of cancer, it changes from cancer to cancer. But in this type of cancer, that meant it was covering lymph. They couldn't tell. They did not determine that it was in the lymph, just that it had grown to cover the lymph. And the reason they didn't know that in the surgery was apparently I had some fun-loving lymph that are supposed to be axillary, living in your armpit, was down there living in the breast tissue with the cancer party.
Okay, so that's how
And
it spread
so
quickly then.
I think so. So I think that they didn't know that because that lymph was not supposed to be there. It's there randomly in a few, some percentage of the population is not supposed to be there. That what they call the sentinel node, which is the node that is supposed to be living there, was totally negative for anything. So they do that while you're on the table. So they say, things should be fine. We don't have to remove any more lymph. They do go through the tissue. 7 days later, they come back. Well, it turns out that sentinel node was fine, but there were 2 or 3 nodes living in the breast tissue that are not typically there, and they were covered in it. But nobody really explained any of that to me. It was more like, we think you're fine. It was more like it was covering it, not infiltrating it. I think they gave me percentages, mostly because I pressed them. It's like a 70 to 75% chance that you'll be fine. And we want you to, it was hormone receptor positive. So we want you on tamoxifen, which is a blocker of estrogen. We want you on that. It will throw you into sort of the pseudo menopause.
Right.
Other than that, no symptoms, should be great. You'll be fine. Go live your life.
So no mention of chemo or radiation at that point?
Pardon me. Yeah, that was after all that. Was mixing up my timelines. So yeah, after they said that 7 days, they said, this is more serious than we thought. You do the full thing of chemo. After that, you'll do the full thing of radiation.
Okay,
So
you went through months.
Yeah. So radiation, the chemo was
Horrible. Yeah. I remember how sick you were.
that.
Yeah.
I
that was
can't.
brutal.
I'm not at the point I can
Yeah. Talk about that.
think about it. It was terrible.
Yes.
All things said, they told me I manage it well. After a few months of that, I went into the third level of chemo, and which it turns out is brutal. Makes you not as sick, but the long-term damage is much more significant. I took a few doses of that. This podcast could get very long if I went into it. Long story short, the doctor was fairly negligent. She ignored the symptoms that I was having a very significant reaction to it, blaming it on a lot of other things. Basically, everybody feels terrible on chemo. And I'm thinking something's not right here. Every week she kept sending me in, go get more, go get more. And I got to the point where I spent 6 weeks with about 104 temperature that was being masked by other meds that I was being told to take. And my sister walked in one day. I was pretty much on death's door. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't do anything. And my sister said, we're going in. No more. We're going in. And took me into the ER, and they could not believe that it had gotten that far, and it was not cancer making me sick and killing me. It was the chemo, and it was being ignored. So it turned into a very rough situation that I've had to work through a lot of anger, and probably the only time I could ever say I've hated.
Did you think you were going to die?
Yes. At that point, I did not think I was going to die from cancer.
You knew
It
the chemo.
entered my head, I could die from this. And
what
this
was
got
your
ugly. And
mindset,
it
knowing
entered my
that-
sister's head.
Knowing
you know?
that you might die, were you okay with it at that point? Like, you know what, take me away? Or it's like, hey, I've got Tyson and Grant.
Yeah, I mean,
Bob,
it
I
got
can't
scary
go.
real fast when I realized what was happening. I was never in ICU, but I was in quarantine for a week in Everett Scripps, and that was scary. I couldn't interact with the world, and I was being pumped full of a bunch of stuff, trying to figure out what's going on. It was terrifying.
And that took it was about a little over 2 year process of all of this, right?
Yeah, I
From
came out of
diagnosis-
that. After all of that, I came out of that. I fired that doctor. Actually, she kind of slinked off, and I never heard from her again. And I healed. I made it my mission. I came out of that and said, I'm not going back to that. Never. I am not going back to that. And they let me have a little extra healing time before they threw me into radiation, and that was several more months. I handled it super great. They said, like, oh, you have the perfect skin type to handle this great. And I did handle it great until I didn't. And then I got very severe burns that turned into an infection. So I met another, like, kind of bump in the road.
Another setback.
Yeah, I had a wonderful nurse that introduced me to some natural things. She was in the regular oncology world and knew about them, and said, just don't do that, do this. And I followed her instructions to the T, got better from that, recovered from those. And all in all, I had 4 surgeries total, because I had a few more follow-up stuff, port
In the 2
insertion
years that was
throughout
about,
that 2 years. Yeah, it was 4 surgeries.
And you officially went, would you say, into remission when? 2016?
They called it, I guess they call it remission once after you've had radiation and you do your next scan.
Okay.
They kind of say, now, never those terms interesting. Like, I think a lot of people have these ideas of terms and things that are going to be used. They were never used. It was more like, just go live your life.
Interesting.
You're good.
Okay. There's a quote by Eleanor Roosevelt. It says this: you gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face. You must do the thing which you think you cannot do. And I think about fear, and I think about times when you question yourself, and anyone listening in today, whether it's a diagnosis, whether it's something you're facing, adversity you're facing, a lot of times there's fear, and it could be health, it could be job, it could be kids, right? And I think that Eleanor Roosevelt quote is very powerful. So let's just say in 2016, you get this new breath of like, okay, I'm over the hump.
Done with the treatment.
I'm done with everything.
It was right around Thanksgiving. It was right before Thanksgiving. It was my last surgery.
Great.
What next?
So I thought, like you said, I'm coming up for air.
You're out of the woods.
I'm good.
Yeah.
And I just had into my mind, I'm building myself back up. I will find what I need to find to get out of this, because I had a lot of infections up until then, things that kind of come back to haunt you when your body is that far behind the 8 ball. A lot of stuff comes back to haunt you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And definitely I reached that and just said, I'm going to have to dig out of this hole. And I'm prepared. I want to get fitter than I've ever been. I want to eat better than I ever have. And I'm going to start learning more about, what's the best I can do for myself.
Yep.
And then my story tanked. Like on your shirt, it says, live a life worth telling a story about. This story is not one I ever wanted to tell about. It found me. And that's when I started saying, why me, God?
Yeah.
What happened?
How?
Hold on.
Take your breath.
So my husband of 16 years at that point, 14 years at that point, I believe it was, 15 years, he had been having some stomach pain. This was like one of the healthiest guys I've ever met. And he was also an athlete. And he had been in pain for a while, it turned out.
But he had been taking care of you.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was kind of denying it. And after the beginning of the year, he's a New Year's baby. He was born January 1st. And he was having a lot of pain on that day. And I kind of took note of it finally. Like I was getting better. I'm, about 2 months out at that point.
Right.
And I kind of said, what's going on with this? And, oh, it's just a little of this. And he would kind of eat a meal and feel like he had to like stretch out. And you could tell he just couldn't get comfortable. And I said, like, something's not right here. And so over the next week or two, I started asking questions. And I said, like, what is going on? He was making more trips to the bathroom and, this like not normal behavior for him. And he was past due because of my treatments. He was 51 and he had not had a colonoscopy, and I'm kind of a stickler for health. And this made me even more of a stickler. And I said, I've been telling you all year, you need to get in and do your colonoscopy. You're 51. Right. You just passed 1 year when you're supposed to start it. And I said, I wanted you to make an appointment. He makes an appointment. And then things just start tanking. It's like by the end of January, he could barely do anything. He was in so much pain. And
did he have a diagnosis?
I said, we need to talk to that. We had an appointment. No, we had an appointment with that colonoscopy. And I said, I think we need to talk with them because they may not be able to do that. You may not be able to handle the barium and all that. Okay. So we talked to him and he says, let's get you in for a scan, an MRI on the abdominal cavity. And he goes in. A couple days later, we get out and he's over the phone. I will remember it like it's clear as day. And we were standing at our desk at the computer and my kids are sitting on the couch watching, like, playing, on their computer, or I don't know what they're doing. And the doctor starts saying, I'm seeing something. Well, I back up a couple of years. I say he was the healthiest guy on the planet. He was. He did have a procedure where they could never explain. He had this strange web-like growth all on the internal of his cavity, abdominal cavity. And it really was asymptomatic. It turns out it was something he had been born with, and it only became symptomatic when he was like in his mid-40s. So he had that. And I expected that, they had warned us, so sometimes people have some scar tissue that may come back to kind of haunt you, and you may have to come in and clean it up. And that's kind of what we were thinking. So that's what was in Bob's mind when he hears we are seeing something. He's thinking, okay. And that's what he had been thinking for those months where he was in pain. And
it was that again.
He was thinking it was that. And he says, he's just, my husband, wonderful as he was incredibly stubborn.
Most guys are.
It's a dude thing. He was a dude's
Guy
dude.
thing.
And he just says, he's like, And this doctor starts describing the pattern. And I knew it from school. I have, about a third of my training was in traditional Western medicine. And he starts describing this pattern. And I'm thinking, a light bulb just goes off in my head. I know that pattern.
Yep.
And he's No, neither of us were hearing what he was saying until that light bulb went off. And I went numb. I just went numb.
So did they suspect right off?
And he's looking at me like, I put the phone on mute. I said, can you hold on a minute? Because my kids are sitting there. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, we have to take this upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I was just like a lightning bolt. And Bob's looking at me like, why did you just do that? And why are you telling this
So
doctor?
you knew in your heart that
I
it was
knew.
cancer
I knew
again.
immediately what it was because of the pattern he was describing. He wasn't using those words, but
you knew.
and I said, we have to go upstairs and take the rest of this phone call. And Bob's like, kind of annoyed at me, like, what are you? I said, take my word for it. You want the rest of this conversation to happen upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
And we get upstairs and he's describing it. And I said, you're talking about pancreatic cancer.
Mm.
And the doctor said, that's what this looks like. And Bob says, no, it's probably the scar tissue from, I had a lot of surgery in that area 5 years ago. Did you go back and look at my history? And he says, I know all about your history, and this is not that. He said, we're going to get you in for a biopsy tomorrow. And Bob says, no. In his head, I could tell he was not buying what that doctor was selling.
Yeah.
Right.
And I knew right before he even said the words, I just knew it. And
When was that?
it was somewhere like, I want to say January 25th of
2017.
2000. No, it would have been 15.
2000.
No,
16.
2016.
So the same year you fight cancer for 2 years. You
Basically.
get in remission, and Bob immediately gets a
2 months
diagnosis
later.
for pancreatic.
We essentially, after I started wrapping my mind around
Right.
this, which took months,
Right.
I realized we had cancer at the same time in our
I think
40s.
anyone out
Yeah.
there listening, I think cancer's never good. You hear pancreatic cancer, and I think one thing comes to mind. It's like, how long?
You're
do
not
I
going to
have?
make it.
How long? How long can I fight
Yes.
on this?
And the pattern they were
Yeah.
describing that I knew is because it's already spread.
So
They
he
could
had
no
had it.
longer see liver
yeah.
because of the tumors covering
Because-
it.
So they believe he had it for a while and had
Yeah.
been asymptomatic, or the symptoms were
Yeah.
kind of
Unfortunately,
attributed to
that's
other
the
things.
not so wonderful hallmark
Right.
of
Yeah.
pancreatic cancer is that it typically is only found
Right.
when it's
the
too
end.
late or you've in there looking for some other thing and you've caught it by accident.
And Bob valiantly fought. For
Oh,
how
yeah.
long?
He was told less than 6 months if he was lucky. We were also told we do see people going longer. It's very rare, and you'll be quite sick if you do from the treatment. But it finally came back, like he did not believe it for several
Right,
days. By
right.
the time we got the biopsy stuff back and all that, he did not believe it for days. And so we're going through this weird numb, I knew it, and he
Yeah.
didn't. And
Did
he
you tell
once
the boys right away?
no, thank goodness we have so many friends and neighbors and
Yeah.
family that live near us. That my mom and dad live 3 miles
Yeah.
to one side of us, and my sister lives 3 miles the other, and we just try to find. They helped us keep the kids busy and normalized and out of the house, and it helped us because it was so
So much to
when you
process.
have that level, you couldn't concentrate. You can't.
No.
I remember people talking to me, and it was just like
Yeah.
yeah.
Sandra, I going through that tough time like that, I put myself in your shoes and Bob's shoes, and I think, gosh, if Melanie had breast cancer and fights it like you fought it, gets through it, then I get a cancer diagnosis and I die in less than 6 months. Because I remember seeing
Well-
Bob on the soccer fields, even when he had that.
Well,
cancer
to be
cancer.
clear,
To be clear, yeah.
he went
had
14 months.
14 months.
14
But if you got
months.
diagnosed with
The
6 months,
diagnosis
the
was
diagnosis
Yes,
was
you're right.
completely
Quick,
wrong.
I get what you
Yeah.
mean.
But knowing that I was going to die, I'm curious how, for me and you, how did faith, if at all, was there a faith that got you through like the darkest days and nights of like, how do you get through that? Was faith a component to this?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Faith and my family
Mm-hmm.
and friends.
Yeah. And how about the kids, Tyson and Grant, when they finally heard that mom had it and now dad has it?
Yeah.
How did they hold up through all this?
I would say in all of this, it's one of the things that I am, however and whenever I die, I'm not convinced it's going to be anytime soon,
Mm-hmm.
but it will be the thing I'm most proud of.
Absolutely.
That they, of course, had their fears. Now, mind you, when this started, my youngest was 6 years old. All he remembers is a parent with cancer. And my oldest is brilliant. And he was 9. He immediately keyed into this. This is scary and not good. And how do you keep them off of researching? And it right from the get-go was, all I care about is I need to keep my children safe from everybody's expectations of what this will do to us, safe from their own selves and their fears. All I cared about was that. It was my mission. It still is.
How do you honor Bob's legacy today? What do you do with the kids to remember their dad?
We do, on his anniversary, we plant a garden every year because he loved to plant gardens every year. He was not buried. He was cremated, and we had a wonderful thing happen. He, like I said, is a bridge engineer, and he worked a lot with the contractors here in all of Southern California, up and down the coast, actually, all the way up to Sacramento, and had a very good working relationship with them, so much so that about 8 of them came from other cities all over California to be at his service, and made it a point. I didn't know them, they were his work. Some of them people he hadn't seen in years from Sacramento, and they all came to me and said, we work for this company, and we wanted to let you know we're here because the normal relationship between the engineers running these projects and the contractors building them is typically an adversarial relationship. And your husband was amazing in the world of that relationship. He not only made it not adversarial, he always had an open door, open phone policy. If you are ever on a job and you are afraid for what's happening or have questions about somebody else's engineering or what's happening on that job, I will intervene in any way I can. He was a very well respected man all through California.
Yeah.
As his boss told him, he was an engineer amongst engineers. He was the engineer that up until the week he died, was getting calls asking for his engineering.
Huh.
Wow.
And he was.
Do you ever get signs now, or do the kids get signs now from him in any way? Or have there been signs since his passing that either signs of strength for you or for the kids, or a feeling, or has anything ever happened? I'm always curious about that. Like, I lost my dad at a young age, and I always used to look for signs.
And I have 2 friends who I believe in my heart of hearts that they've had signs from parents. I have not had those types of signs that they have, where you can't really explain them.
Right.
But he so much lives on through his coworkers go out of their way. I mean, they came over and held a huge party planted a tree in Bob's name in our yard.
You've been in touch with them since. The
Oh,
service
all the
and
time,
everything?
all the time.
Okay,
They
that's
reach
great.
out all the time.
That's
They're amazing people
awesome.
at Caltrans, especially in that bridge department.
Yeah.
I love them.
Yeah.
And they have, what I was going to say is that before he died, he said, I have one request. And that is that I would like to be buried in one of my bridges.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
And he arranged it. I don't know how much I should say because it wasn't really. Apparently, ash is
Don't
a
worry
part
about
of
saying.
concrete. Ash is a part of
Wow,
concrete,
that's
and let's just say
Yes.
there's a.
You've got a special bridge here in San Diego. That's
We had
amazing.
had a ceremony
I
at
love
very
that.
early in the
I
morning.
love it. I love
Every
it. I
time
love
I
it.
go, I know exactly where it
Yeah.
is.
I
I
wanna know
look
what
up.
bridge that is.
I will
know.
tell you after the
We're
show.
going to get off these mics, and I have some
And
questions.
let me tell you, I just found out the Friday before school started for the kids. So this is only 3 weeks ago. Those same engineers, they invite us out for his last project. So he did a lot of the work, but it was really nothing above ground had started on it. And it didn't start until a few months after he passed. And they let me know, like, as they get to certain marks, that we would be invited back. And so we've been to 2 of them. There was another big event, and so they invited. It was kind of like, why were they having us drive to this place? And it was the Manchester Bridge over the I-5 in
yeah.
Encinitas. And it turns out, I had no idea he was still doing this extensive of bridge design. I thought he had gotten more into the construction side of things and contractual side. And it turns out he had one last bridge that he designed, and it was a doozy. It was, they wanted to surprise us all. It was apparently groundbreaking work for Caltrans, I was described. It'll be 4 bridges in one.
Wow.
You will be cursing his name as construction goes, as everyone who knows him does.
That's amazing.
Because they, it slows stuff down, and
you smile.
It's beautiful. It's going to be a really beautiful bridge. You won't see it from driving over it, but you'll see it from Encinitas. They're doing a lot to that lagoon there, where they did stuff that will change Caltrans forever because of that work on that bridge. And I had no idea he even did it.
Oh,
So it was really
amazing.
wonderful for the kids and me to
What was-
go
Yeah.
see that.
What was the date that Bob passed?
It was, I feel like I should know this. This is really insane.
Probably a blur.
March 19th or 20th. It's one of those things I choose not to remember.
of
But on purpose.
17.
2017. Yeah.
March 2017.
You know, folks, as I talked to Sandra here with Melanie, I share this today because when I started this podcast, I said I wanted real talk. And you're always like, hey, get your mind right, get your mind right. The way to get your mind right, as you know, is as you face adversity and challenge and diagnosis and injury and tough times in relationships or business, is know that you are going to face the most difficult times, and you never know how strong you are until strong is all you have left. And Sandra Dougherty is an example of there's nothing left. You're fighting cancer, you think it's over, and then you dig deep, and then you somehow miraculously get through it. And then you lose your husband from cancer. And I want you to know today, as you listen in, that you may not be touched right now as I'm speaking, but there will be a day when you lean on me or I lean on you and saying, hey, this is what I'm fighting with, or you lean in and say, hey, TD, this is what I'm going through. And I hope Sandra's story inspires you, knowing that, man, sometimes life is going to throw you a curveball or 2 or 3. I want you to keep on fighting. Sandra, it's now in the fall of 2019, and 2.5 years has passed since Bob's passing, and your kids are growing. Take us up to now. How are you doing? Where's life at? I'd like to just get a glimpse and share with our listeners today with how you're doing today.
So today I am having a super great day.
You look beautiful.
Thank
You
you.
look so healthy and strong.
I feel healthy and strong.
You look great.
I'm told that I'm not healthy or strong by my doctors. So that's because we were kind of going along. I made it my mission to get us through. I mean, I literally every day had a mantra after he passed that we will come out better for this. I will not let this be the defining factor in my kids' childhood of who they are and what their destiny is. It just grew and grew and grew, and it wasn't any, I can't cite my inspiration. It was something I just knew. Even when he was sick before he died, it just was building into my head. I did not allow people to talk about things that they thought, their fears and their things that they put on the way my kids should feel. I allowed my kids to feel what they felt. I got them a lot of therapy, a lot of group therapy, a lot of grief counseling. We were going along, and I felt like hitting all the markers from what I'm told from the counselors and things like that. And then I had a snowboarding accident a year and a half ago. Love snowboarding and skiing and soccer. I had been playing soccer. And then 2 weeks later, I'm snowboarding at Mammoth, and I had one of the worst falls I've ever had in my whole life, snowboarding. And my back was just hurting me something fierce after that. And I kind of thought, since I don't love going to doctors that much, I thought I can rehab this myself. And I did. It took me about 3 or 4 months. And then a couple months after that, it was Father's Day, actually. And every year at Father's Day, my kids are in Boy Scout camp, and we were there. And believe it or not, there's something called dirt boarding. And I was doing it on a course.
Of course.
And I fell again. Now, I had gone from zero pain, I had a couple months of no pain, to that same pain was right back. And I have a chiropractor that I see all the time, Dr. Stein, over in La Jolla. And I said, I did it again. We need to go fix it. He saw me for about a month, and he said, I will not adjust you again. There's something that's not normal here. It should have changed by now. I need you to go to an x-ray, or I will not treat you again. Okay. And by this time, I was in a fair amount of pain.
Right.
And this was last summer. I went in by myself. My sister had just left on a vacation, and I didn't want to involve my parents, or I thought I can just go pop in there. I'm going to get a quick x-ray. My doctor was out of town, so it would have taken too long to go through that route. And I just said, I'm going to pop into that urgent care and do it. And I walked out of there. I should not say that. I walked out of there. I almost collapsed because I thought, I damaged the disc. Maybe I broke a few vertebrae. But it came back that there was a great big fat tumor covering 3 of my vertebrae, T5 through 8. Yeah. So that's another point. Like, I don't know if you've ever had something happen where you just go numb.
Yeah.
And it's like time stands still. And all I thought of was,
it's back.
This is that other shoe.
Yeah.
That other shoe is dropping. And I said, I can't call my parents. They will not be of help to me. I need to get home, but I can't drive. And I called my best friend, Maria, and I said, Susie's out of town. I need you to get here. And I told her what happened, and she said, I'll be there in a half an hour. She lives in Pacific Beach. She drove up here, and I could barely walk out of there. And I walked out of there, and I don't know how. And I walked past, and there was a friend of mine in the waiting room. I think you know them, but she saw me, and I tried to feign like, hey, how you doing? And I walked out, and I got in the car, and she took me home, and I called my parents once I got home and said, I need you to come over here. And I broke the news. Maria helped me break the news to them. My sister ended up coming home from her trip. And my main goal at that point was, I need to hide this from the kids until I have more information and can wrap my mind around it and how I want to proceed. And so my parents, everybody kind of got mobilized, and it was round 2 of the same thing. Keep the kids busy, keep everything normalized, let them think it's all because of the fall. I let them know that I did, in fact, break some bones in my back, because that part was true. So I had 3 bones in there that were obliterated, and from there, the urgent care doctor put it through to my oncologist that, once you're a cancer patient, you're always a cancer patient. Mm-hmm. So for a while there, I had every ologist known to man. I was like a 90-year-old woman. And she calls me on a Friday night after a little more scans over those 3 days and calls me. And I don't think anything good's going to come of an oncologist calling you at 7 o'clock on a Friday night.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it turns out I look at my phone and I was so tired from all the pain I was in. I had laid down and then I came out of the shower and saw, there were like 4 or 5 calls from her. And she's desperately trying to get a hold of me. And this was what I got. While I'm standing there, sopping wet, drying off on my towel, I listened to my message and it says, Sandra, I've left you several messages. I need you, as soon as you get this, to call me. Your scans have come back. You've basically obliterated your 3 vertebrae behind my heart, essentially, between my scapula. And they're splintered. And they're poking into your spinal cord. And that's why you're having this pain. My pain was more like I couldn't use my arms. Mm-hmm. And she kept asking, are you having symptoms in your feet? And I said, no, nothing in your lower. Right. So she said, that's a good sign. You need to very carefully, do not bend forward. Right. Do not turn your head. Do not bend forward in any way, or even bend your head forward. Call an ambulance.
Tell you to call an ambulance. I remember that.
She said, yep. She said, over at Torrey Pines Emergency will be waiting for you, and they will check you in.
Have you thought to yourself, like, what else could happen?
And were the boys home that night?
No, thankfully they were not. My sister was getting ready to come over anyways, and we were going to go do something. And she
what do? You
went
just
there.
Call 911
yep.
and just say,
she actually, I called her. I talked to the doctor, and she said, if you can get somebody to drive you, that's already there. I said, she's already here.
Oh,
she said, have her drive you.
Right.
Like I said, you don't bend your head, even bend your head forward or turn your head.
Okay. Wow.
So
you've asked yourself, is this it? Multiple times. Is this it? Is this it?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, how is this happening?
Totally.
Yeah.
So
she basically said, we have a bigger problem than the cancer at this point. You're getting ready to be paralyzed and we can't come back from that. So do not make any sudden moves. It was unbelievable. Unbelievable. Strangely enough, when I think of that, I'm not brought to tears. Yeah. I'm just
like, it was just crazy.
So today you're battling cancer right now.
Yeah, every waking moment.
So take me to the now. How do you get through it? If there's 2 or 3 things that you do on a daily basis to say, here's what I'm either eating, here's my mindset. Could you give our listeners something like, here's some tangible things that I do just to try to get through the day?
Yes. I could give you probably 20.
Let's go with a few.
Okay.
We'll write a book. You should write a book.
Off the mic, I want those
you should
other
write a book.
15.
You should write a book. We'll save it for the book.
I do feel I have one.
Have you thought about writing a book?
I do. Not because I love attention and all that. I think about writing a book because I think there are multiple things. I'm told from people around me there are multiple things they take from my experience. I feel always that is the divine working through me. It's not coming from me.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Let's shoot through a few of those things that you do on a regular basis, daily basis, in the time we have left.
I'll tell you, I started with my water.
Okay.
Every day.
How much?
Nope, not how much. It's what. I do not drink anything that is not ultra pure. I do not drink anything with fluoride or chlorine in it. Okay. That happened the very next week.
What kind of water would it be then?
I use Enagic.
Enagic.
There are other ones. It also happens to be alkalized. That's kind of controversial and not my main reason for using it. It's ionized water, and it's small molecules that gets as hydrated as possible.
Next.
Number 1.
That's 1.
Number 2, I went all vegan, plant-based, and it was completely pretty much raw for the first 5 or 6 months.
Okay.
Every day I wake up, I pray and meditate.
Tell me about that.
I pray to God for guidance, and I meditate within myself so I can hear the guidance. That is key, because if I did not start there, my mind would not be right. My heart would not be right. I would have gone. I would have hit the ground running with anger and hate and why me's, instead of I'm hitting the ground running in a direction with the picture in my mind of total health. That's
so you visualize as well.
Every day.
Is
I
that
visualize
first thing in the morning, like before you get the boys up?
In theory.
Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, I'm not just a single parent. I'm an only parent.
Yeah.
That's a whole different ballgame, I realized.
Yeah.
And it's also wonderful. I just decided that this will not be a negative for them. Of course, there are negatives, but they will never look back on this time and think it was all bad.
Yeah.
No.
How about two more things? Water, plant-based, pray, meditate, visualize. You got that. We'll be maybe one or two more things you do on a regular basis to help you win the day. Just to get through the day.
I have a coach/counselor.
Love it.
That I see every week since it happened.
Yep.
And she keeps my head on straight.
Bingo.
Every day I have make lifestyle choices.
Great.
I do chiropractic regularly. I do acupuncture regularly. I bought a $10,000 sauna.
Good for you.
Because I
Good
heard
for you.
infrared is one of the best
yeah.
things you can do for yourself on the planet.
Good for you.
I got one. I bought the best of the best. I just said I'm going for it.
Good for you. So the investment in your health, obviously, we talk
Heavily.
about it all the time, but obviously when you have been in that in the shoes you've walked in, I always talk about this: he or she who has their health has 1,000 dreams. He or she who does not has one. Let me repeat: he or she who has their health has 1,000 dreams, but he or she who does not has one. Get your health back. And walking through your shoes and in your shoes, you know the value of health. If there, besides those 5 great points, would there be any other things that you would share with any of our listeners today who may really resonate with some of the things you're talking about? It's as we share this, it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and would there be any other things you would share with either the mindset, the soul set, the physical set, with anyone listening in today?
Yeah, I would say, do not take anything that a person, and in my case it was doctors and literally everyone around me, saying this is what your destiny is, and make it your own. Make your own stuff your own. And I made it my mission to get inspired and find another story to be told. And every day I walk in that. Every day I make up my own story. And I've had people say, well, maybe you should be in reality. Why? That's a reality that is not a pleasant one. And I do not, even if I never live one day longer, I don't believe that's my destiny, but I am absolutely at peace with even if I do not live one day longer, I will live it healthier, and I'd rather live until that day believing I can live.
Fired up.
That's my. I don't want to live every day knowing it's going to end.
Sandra Dougherty, you are an inspiration. Melanie, do you have something else to say?
Since you first started talking about doing podcasts, Sandra was my number one. Sandra, I wanted you on, and I wanted you to share your story because just watching you and just being part of just the people that have seen what you've been going through. You're so inspiring. You're so strong.
Thank you.
You're just such a testament to true strength, and I just appreciate you opening up to everybody and sharing.
Something in me clicked that said, I can't keep all this private. A lot of it feels private, but I think.
Well, I appreciate you sharing it. It's not easy to share this.
It's hard to talk about.
Have you ever thought to yourself, like, sometimes we think, why is this happening to me? Have you ever asked yourself, why is this happening for me? Have you ever thought that?
There's been a mindset. I've looked into many alternative treatments. I've gone out of the country. for them. And I will probably continue to do so.
Yeah.
That would be the other thing I would impart. Do not stop looking. Do not.
You did.
There's more. There's so much. There is so much out there for cancer patients, late stage. And I have met them. I have been with them at the hospital. I have seen people unable to walk in of their own accord, unable to digest a meal, and stand up and 1 week later are eating meals after they were told you should be dead.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a part two, because that is
part two.
That
you
is
want
where
it. I want to hear if you want a part
gets
two with Sandra.
interesting.
You let me know, because I talk about
All
quarterback
that
your own
you've
health
done.
all the time.
Yeah.
If you had to write the book that you want to write, what would be the name of your book?
I don't have a great answer for that, other than keep on keeping on. I mean,
keep on.
I will never stop looking.
You know what I like? We will come out better.
Yeah.
Didn't you say something
You're
about
right.
that's your mantra?
It really is.
We will come out better.
We will.
And when you know there's hope for tomorrow, and when you put your faith in God and you're praying and you think about those kids, your mantra you said earlier on was, we will come out better. I mean, think about that persistence of what you do every single day, so you will come out better. And man, one of my favorite books was by Stuart Scott, who was the legendary commentator at ESPN about beating cancer. Jim Valvano, close friend, cancer can take away all of my physical abilities. It cannot touch my mind, it cannot touch my heart, and it cannot touch my soul. And Jim Valvano, most of you know who Jim Valvano is. And the other thing I think about is from the late Dr. Martin Luther King, talks about the measure of a man or woman is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he or she stands at a time of challenge and controversy. And Sandra, when I think about Jim Valvano and Dr. King and Eleanor Roosevelt, I can't thank you enough for the walk. And sometimes you probably feel alone, but you're never alone.
No, I don't feel alone ever anymore.
When I think about Live a Life Worth Telling a Story About, it's about legacy. I'll end it with this: is your legacy. What's your legacy all about?
My legacy is that people can be faced with a lot of things, and you can sit and say, why me, and this is terrible. But in the end, you look up, you feel what you feel, and you get angry. And I even told my kids at one point, you can scream the F word if you need to.
Right.
Yeah.
You go do that in your room. You have every right to feel that. We can't deny our humanity and our grief of whatever that grief is. You put an end date to it. And then you say, I don't have to keep looking down here at this stuff and this stuff. I can keep looking forward, and I can look around. And I that was my very talk I said to my kids when I had to break that news to them. When I had to tell them, I know your dad just died. And there's a possibility I am too. I couldn't make any promises. But I said, you keep looking around you at the people you have that have been holding us up. You're being held up. You may not know it, of all the people who have come and touched us, who have donated when we needed things, meals, money, rides. Our family, I said, there are kids who do not have 4 family members who have come forward and said, I will take your kids if it comes down to that. 4, saying they would move so that my kids could live in the same area and go to the same school so they didn't get uprooted again with this. And I said, you know how many people do not have any of that? So you feel what you got to feel. You get mad and you get angry and sad and feel sorry for yourself. And you're going to have days like that. Lord knows I had one a couple days ago. And then I reminded myself, you take your own advice and you look up and you look around, because there's always something to be grateful for. It comes down to gratitude every day for me. Every day. When I look back at this year, there have been some pretty horrible things, but I don't look back at this year and I'm filled with joy. I'm filled with joy at what I have. and how much
you radiate it.
Yeah,
you
good.
You radiate it.
It comes out. It's really not just me saying that. I feel it every day. I wake up and I feel pure joy and gratitude.
Yeah.
Wow. Folks, you just listened to the deepest episode yet. And Sandra, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for just coming out and sharing your story. Because I know that's going to impact thousands of people.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you for being here. And folks, if you enjoyed listening to that, if it touched your spirit and soul in some way, do Sandra a favor, do me a favor, and I want you to share this and share her journey. Because as my pastor said once, is sometimes you think you got it bad and you listen to a story and you're like, hey, someone's got it way worse than me. And Sandra's been through hell and back multiple times and is still facing the biggest battle of her life as we speak. So I want you to pray for her, pray for her family, pray for anyone that has a diagnosis right now of any disease, physically, mentally, spiritually, whatever that may be. And when you do that and you lift it up and you get through the day and you do exactly what Sandra just shared from every aspect of her entire soul she just shared, I believe that you will get through the day. And as she said, it's all about the quality of life that you live, not about the quantity of how long you live, but the quality of life that you live. So we're going to end in prayer. Father, just thank you so much for this time. And although it certainly was lengthy, boy, was it deep and was it great. As we go about our days today, as all the busyness that's out there, and we got to-do lists that are so darn long, that we can slow down enough to be grateful, as Sandra just said, to be grateful for who's in our life. Not what's in our life, but who's in our life, that we can just be cognizant of the fact that it's all about time. It's all about energy, and it's all about the love that we surround ourselves with, and that we can radiate that joy and find joy in all the little things. In your name we pray.
Amen.
Amen. Guys, remember this. We will come out better. Thank you so much. Folks, I am back. And was that one of the most amazing conversations you've ever heard? Like, seriously, Sandra Dougherty had me in tears. She was in tears. Mel was in tears. But not tears of sadness, really tears of inspiration of how did this gal continue to fight and continues to fight to get through every single day with having two kids. And I love the fact that she said, I'm not only she's not like she's an only parent. She parents by herself, her two sons. Truly was amazing on that. So many great takeaways, those 6 takeaways on that. I don't know which one resonates with you, from having a coach to choosing a lifestyle to quarterbacking your own health to drinking more water, possibly going to a more plant-based diet, and the power of prayer and how important that is. Whichever resonated with you the most, I hope that you take one of those points and really, really put it into your conversation today. It was one of our longest episodes, but here's what I always remember this. Like, despite me saying, hey, I want a short episode or not, whether it's a video, a podcast, what I always say is, don't get carried away with how long something is. Get carried away with how great something is. Because I believe that was some of the most profound, deep wisdom that I've heard in a long time from someone, fighting the good fight. And lastly, she talked about legacy and what her legacy is all going to be about. And she talked about, we will come out better. We will come out better. And that's a mantra, right? So you hear me talk about it, legacy, all the time. What's your legacy going to be? And I want you guys to journal on this. I want you to think about it, write about it, pray about it, because legacy truly is, at the end of the day, what's most important, right? So if you are a trainer, coach, fit pro, which we have many people who are fitness professionals, and you would like to work even more so on that legacy, you don't have a lot of time left to work on it with me, because here in about a month's time, actually 1 month from when this episode comes out, November 7th, right here in beautiful, sunny San Diego, I am having something to help you craft up the most amazing life that you can possibly live. It's called my mentorship, my 3.5-day live mentorship. And if you want to get out to that, it's not too late. You still have time to sign up. But if you got to be willing to go deep. You got to be willing to make some profound changes in your life and not wait for a certain time, a certain diagnosis, a certain disaster or something to happen. Like if you choose now that now is the time for me to make the steps necessary, I would love to see you at my 3.5-day live mentorship. I only do it once a year. It's only happening this November, 2019, November 7th to the 10th. Take a look right there on my website, toddurkin.com/live-mentorship19, toddurkin.com/live-mentorship19. If you found great value in today's episode, please do me a favor. Don't forget. Please share this episode. Please share this episode on your social media, wherever you hang out. Share it because, again, Sandra did an amazing job just dropping some great wisdom today. And if you have not yet created and written a review, please write a review. I'm reading the reviews, and we've got some awesome 5-star ratings and some incredible reviews. But, man, I know you've been busy. I get it. I understand. But right now, in this month of October, if you have not written that review, please do so, and I would truly appreciate it. Have an incredible day, and don't forget, we will come out better.